Yo, yo, welcome to Trippy Commentaries and our Week 5 preview here for the 2014 NFL season, which has been a wild one so far. This week has some intriguing matchups. In fact, I think I'm going to be picking some upsets. Definitely something to take to the bank as you go to your local sports book or bookie. Hopefully make some money, as I think this might be the week to do it. I think some of the past weeks, it's been a little bit hard to bet on these games and make some money with the lines. Last week I had a pretty good record and I feel really good about it this week. I'm RJ, joined up by K-Mac.
Yo, we did pretty well last week. This week here, you got some rivalry matches, so those right there I never am very comfortable betting on. Those matchups where it could really go either way, even if one team is clearly better than the other one, just because of the tradition and everything, the lead up to the game that these players go through. You're going to see New Orleans and Tampa. That's a big rivalry matchup.
Yeah.
Even Chicago, Carolina. That's becoming better now. I like the matchup there. We don't really know what kind of game we're going to have either one of those teams. And the Thursday night, obviously this is probably going to be watching this after the Thursday night, but even big rivalry matchup for that game as well.
Yeah, definitely look for Green Bay to win that one. But like K-Max said, you guys probably have already watched that game. Hopefully it was a good one. Let's kick it off. We got a lot of games to talk about.
Let's do it.
And like I said, a lot of tough ones to pick. Starting off with Chicago traveling to Carolina. Not really too sure what to make of Carolina right now. I have not been impressed with Cam Newton at all. And their running backs are just completely banged up all the way around. I think they're going to use Fozzie Whitaker as their starter. Some reject from Cleveland.
Actually, Darren Reeves is going to be the starter. So that's how bad it is over
That's
there.
right. I heard about that earlier. Darren
Rookie.
Reeves.
So
Wow. Anyways, they are favored by 2.5 points despite throwing out some no-name running backs there. I think Chicago is in a good position despite losing pretty badly to Green Bay. I think this is a good bounce-back game, even though it's in Carolina. Real tough game to pick.
yeah, this is a tough one. Like I said, this was kind of you don't really know what kind of game you're going to get out of either one of these teams yet. Carolina, at the start of the season, they looked good. They looked like a pretty solid team. Defense was great. And then all of a sudden, week 3, week 4, it's like, wow, what team is this? All of a sudden, they're falling apart.
Yeah.
Defense is giving up a lot of touchdowns. Their offense is really not helping them out. So because of that, I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I think it'll be a close game. Chicago probably wins it by a field goal. I like Chicago's offense to be able to put up a little more points than Carolina's offense. Even though Chicago's defense is pretty weak, it's not as good as we've known it to be in the past. I still think if it does turn into that kind of a matchup where they're going to try to outshoot each other, I got to go with Chicago.
Yeah, the only question mark I had was Brandon Marshall. The coach there, Mark Trestman, said they wanted to take a long look at Marshall heading into this matchup, but he's practicing in full, I think. So that's a good sign. That means he might be looking good heading into this matchup.
Yeah.
Very intriguing. I want to see what Carolina can do in this is not a good defense there in Chicago. So this is definitely a team they can exploit offensively, but I'm not sure what Cam Newton is capable of at this point. I look for Chicago, like you, to come in and get the upset, even given the 2.5 points there to help them out. That really is a game to go after if you do want to put some money down. Let's move on to Cleveland traveling to Tennessee. This is not a good matchup at all. Are you kidding me?
Hopefully we don't get stuck with this one.
Oh man, I hope not. I really like what Cleveland's doing here, but at Tennessee, this actually might be a game they can lose, despite being the slight better team. The guy we're looking at right now, Jordan Cameron, I think he's going to get out there on the field.
Finally.
And Brian Hoyer's been pretty good so far, been decent. Tennessee's a work in progress.
Yeah, and I think they're getting Ben Tate back this week, so they'll have kind of a committee running back, running back by committee.
Three guys,
and that's good for Cleveland, and that's good for if you're putting money on it. You want that stability back there. Tennessee, I have a hard time betting on them this year in any game.
They're getting 2 points.
Really inconsistent. This game here is probably gonna be close, but with Cameron coming back, Hopefully that adds to the offense a little bit. I'm going with Cleveland in this one.
Yeah, so far we're on the same page all the way around, K-Mac.
Yeah.
I really like Cleveland in this matchup. I think Brian Hoyer's pretty much underrated at this point. And Tennessee, as I said, they just need some work. They need to gel, and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I like their running back who they're going to break out in this one. Bishop Sankey, he's a rookie. I think he's going to be their running back of the future.
Yep.
So we'll see what they can do. Mettenberger jumped in the game last week. I don't even know why they're throwing in Whitehurst. I mean, he's been around forever. That seems like a waste of time. Throw in Mettenberger. See if you have anything there.
No confidence in him yet.
Jake Locker banged up. Let's go ahead and move on as we're both picking Cleveland here. Perhaps Cleveland gets some wins and turns out to be a contender this year. I think they'll be 8-8 right about now, which is not bad with the young quarterback. Something to look forward to.
They got some talent. They just got to figure out their quarterback situation, and once that gets going, then yeah, I mean, you got something to work with.
And of course, we all got to remember they're getting Josh Gordon back with some weeks left in the season, so might not be as anything to look forward to as far as saving their season this year, but it could give them the chemistry they need working into next year. Maybe next year's finally the year that we see Cleveland become relevant. Moving on, St. Louis traveling to Philadelphia, who comes in favored by 7 points. This is another upset special here. The quarterback there in St. Louis, Davis, has looked fine.
Yeah.
And it's not like Philly's defense is scaring anybody here. If Zach Stacy gets going, St. Louis might win this one in Philadelphia.
That's saying a lot. I got to go with Philadelphia in this one. I think Philadelphia is a much better team than what they've put on the field so far. Now they won their first 3 games, but every one of those games they came out in the first half looking terrible, and they finally would turn around in the second half. San Francisco game, that was a tough game. That was a good game. It was a good game going back and forth between both teams. I see them bouncing back this week and actually taking it to the Rams. The Rams they've been able to hang with some teams. But I cannot put my money on the Rams, especially, it is a 7 point. They're giving them 7. They're giving
7 points.
7
I'm
points
picking
spread on
Philly
them,
to win the game, but I'm picking St. Louis in Vegas. I'll take the 7.
Do you think it's gonna go closer than 7? Okay.
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, I think actually Philadelphia's gonna win by 2 scores, so I'm gonna go with Philadelphia.
So you're giving them the points and
I think
everything.
I think this is a week that Philadelphia.
This is one of those weekends.
Maybe plays whole game looking sharp.
This is one of those weekends where I wish we could take a trippy flight out to Vegas, take part in some festivities, as I've been there a couple times. I'm a veteran, and I would definitely love to hit up the sports book. Maybe go to the one there at Hooters, have some wings, play some blackjack, throw some money down on some games. We're based out of Tampa Bay, and the only option we have is to go on one of the casino cruises where you're trapped out at sea for like 4 hours.
It's kind of shady.
Yeah, but hey, it is a sports book legally once you get out into international waters. So, interesting game to pick there. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, pick Philly in the real world. But given 7 points, I'm going to go with St. Louis. K-Mac seems pretty confident in Philly to take out St. Louis by quite a bit. Atlanta versus the Giants, one of the best matches of Sunday. The Giants have a 4-point cushion here as far as Vegas is concerned.
Yeah.
Atlanta's got to be pissed. They're coming off of pretty much an ass whooping by the hands of the Vikings. Can they stop the run? Because the Giants have a decent run game here that they like to really use more than they even should. I think their passing game can be used even more so.
Yeah.
But I like how they're sticking to their guns, saying, we know we got some passing options with Ben McAdoo, but our running game is what's going to win us the games in the long run here.
Yeah, I look at these two teams. I see an Atlanta team that is actually, they're not playing to the level they were playing at the beginning of the season. And then I see the Giants, who are a team that are playing even better than they were at the beginning of the season. So I got to stick with that. I got to go with the Giants here. Like you said, Giants offense last week, they really put it together. And what I saw from last week is kind of scary because they actually looked like a good team. And we pretty much wrote off the Giants as probably not even going to be a contender in this division. So with them putting that together last week, I like the momentum they have going forward. I thought Eli Manning looked good. And Atlanta, man, they got to figure out what it takes to win because
What
they
about
looked
Atlanta?
horrible last week.
But they completely destroyed Tampa Bay.
They did.
I actually am starting to think that that is because of the short week. Tampa Bay is a team that is learning a new system on the fly. The one thing we have to point out here in Tampa Bay's first season under Tony Dungy, they were terrible.
0 and
And a
5.
lot of people questioned Tony
Started,
Dungy.
yeah, 0-5 to start it before they got the first win. So
The next year was the bounce back year where they finally made the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And that was the start of that Buccaneers defense, which is one of the best defenses of all time. So just for anybody rooting for the Bucks, be patient. I know they look terrible to start off with, and quite frankly, their safety play has been abysmal. That's the one thing we got to point out here. Their front seven has been decent, especially when Gerald McCoy's been in there. Michael Johnson had his first really good game last week. Their front seven looks fantastic, even and also Mason Foster's out, so they've had Dane Fletcher in there. The other linebacker they have, Levante David, is really fun to watch. I mean, this guy is amazing. He doesn't get enough credit. So their safety play has been what's holding them back. All they need is some good safeties in that system. I think Tampa Bay is going to start winning, but they are playing at the Saints. This is a tough one.
10.5 points. To me, this is an easy one. I got to go with Tampa Bay. What I was wanting to touch on with Atlanta and New Orleans, they had a really close matchup in the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen both these teams just get whooped up. I don't feel that either one of these two teams are maybe as good as a lot of people were kind of envisioning them to be. We all were talking it's probably going to be Atlanta and New Orleans fighting for the division championship. It still could be that way, but I don't know if they're really the talent of the rest of the NFC.
This is a good game to find out how good Atlanta is going against the Giants.
Going against the Giants, and then we'll see how good New Orleans actually is going against Tampa. Can Tampa, continue to do what they did last week? I mean, you gotta like what you saw from the offensive side with Glennon in there. He looked a lot more comfortable than Josh McCown did. So maybe that's all they needed was that win to kind of get them going here, to kind of shake this division up. 10.5 points. I don't know if Tampa Bay is going to beat New Orleans, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than they have it here. So I got to take Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that's an interesting game to pick. Who'd you pick there with the Atlanta versus the Giants? Giants given 4 points. Are you going with the Giants at home?
I'm going with the Giants.
Wow.
I'm going with back-to-back.
Hard to see Atlanta losing back-to-back games. Of course, on the road here, they're much better at home after the shellacking they gave to the Bucks. But as we've been talking about, I don't think that was the real Bucks. I think that was a team learning in a short week, which means that was a mirage. Falcons lose again to the Giants, even though the Giants have a 4-point cush. I actually look for them to get a nice lead here. So go ahead and put your money on the Giants. Now the Tampa Bay New Orleans game, you said the 10.5 points is probably too much for the Saints because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should keep it close. I know they looked horrible in the early goings. The one thing we have to talk about here, K-Mac, is the Saints just seem to bring it against the Bucks. That's one team they have lit up each and every time. But then the Bucks have also pulled off the upset, so you get one or the other.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay has always played the Saints well in New Orleans. It seems like they are always able to go there and kind of upset them. Usually that happens on the second time we play them at the end of the year when it doesn't matter. But it'd be nice if Tampa Bay could pull it off here kind of early in the season. But
problem is the safety play, the bad safety play that we talked about. That just lines up for New Orleans all the way.
Well, you got Major Wright in there who's probably going to be starting now, and he has been successful with Lovie Smith's defense in the past, so maybe that is an improvement. I know on their depth chart, initially it's not an improvement for them, but maybe he's a little more comfortable in the system as to where Barron and Goldson maybe aren't, they haven't learned this defense quite yet because, we heard, Warren Sapp and John Lynch, they all said they were still learning that defense going into the Super Bowl. So it's a very complex defense, something that's going to take time. But with New Orleans here, I mean, I gotta see Drew Brees step it up. I'm not seeing enough from him right now. I think he's kind of getting a pass because everyone looks up to him as being such a great quarterback. I feel that so far this season, there was the Falcons game that he couldn't pull it off. We saw last week they couldn't pull it off again. Drew Brees needs to take this team on his shoulders and lead them back to being that great New Orleans team that I think a lot of people are kind of blinded right now because they're thinking it's still that Saints team, but they have not been playing to that level this season at all.
Yeah. I think you got to pick the Bucks with the 10.5 points. I think this should be a close game. It's a really tough one to pick. Man, I really want to go with the Bucks because I question the Saints so much after last week's matchup with the Cowboys. That was the worst I've seen them look in a long time.
And they got ran all over, so maybe Doug Martin's going to have, finally that breakout game that we saw from him his rookie season.
Even Bobby Rainey.
Yep.
That said, I got to go with the Saints at home. It's going to be a close matchup. I just think it's going to be tough for the Bucks to stop Brandon Cooks and Jimmy Graham.
And it seems like going back the past couple of times these two teams met, it always seems that the game ends like with some like bullshit. Like remember the last year the Bucks had the touchdown pass, but Mike Williams' foot was got pushed out of bounds before he caught it, and it's going to be close. I think the 10.5. You just got to take Tampa Bay because of that.
Yeah, that's a lot of points from a Buccaneers team who has been better than people give them credit for. There was another game that they should have won here where basically their rookie wide receiver Mike Evans, they called an injury on. 10-second runoff. They were in field goal range, which would have won the game. Really would have changed people's opinions about the Bucks overall after. Of course, they just come off of a huge win in Pittsburgh, one of the biggest upsets of the season so far.
Yep.
Definitely go with the Bucks, guys. Houston at Dallas. This is the Battle of Texas. The thing we gotta say, Kyle, Houston cannot stop the run, and Dallas has a beast of a running back.
Best in the league right now.
I look for the Cowboys to win, even with the 6 point. You got to take 6 points away from them if you're going with Houston.
Oh, in Dallas, I feel Dallas wins this game, and I'm taking them with the 6 points. I feel Houston's kind of gotten away with kind of an easier schedule. Some of their wins have been against teams that we're looking at this year as not even being contenders at any fashion at all. And the fact that they cannot stop the run. Dallas probably going to run all over them. I kind of like Dallas' offense. I think Romo is playing pretty well now, and we'll see how long that continues. But he's doing enough to put up points on the board, and that's all it's going to take against this Houston team, who, like I said, we got Fitzpatrick. Has his glimpses of looking good sometimes, and then he's going to throw the interceptions or fumble. And I'd like to see Arian Foster bounce back, but I just can't put my money on Houston again. And not at Dallas Stadium. The way DeMarco Murray's running the ball right now, they're not going to stop him.
Yeah, and look at the running backs here. You have two running backs that we questioned about injuries heading into the season. DeMarco Murray, no injuries to speak of, has looked great.
Yeah.
Arian Foster, when on the field, has looked great, but the injuries did spike up with him. I think that's the key difference. If it was a healthy Arian Foster, this could be another upset special. But this looks like a win for Dallas, which is awesome for their fan base. They have a team where, what are they going to be, 4-1 or whatever, which is really crazy. They're going to start to get pumped up. Tony Romo's saying the right stuff. He's saying that he feels great all of a sudden after the off-season back surgery.
Yep.
Now, given the 6 points, I think Dallas can still win by over a touchdown. I would go with them.
I'm taking Dallas as well.
Let's go ahead and finish off this episode, K-Mac. Buffalo is traveling to Detroit. I picked Detroit to make the Super Bowl last year. I'm starting to wonder if I was a season ahead here because now their defense looks like one of the better Ds in the league. We all know what their offense is capable of. I still don't think Calvin Johnson's at full strength, and I think he's not going to have a great game in this matchup against Buffalo, but they still have enough weapons to take him out at home.
I'm going with Detroit on this one. Buffalo, I don't think has a chance at all.
Do you think they can get within 7 points? Because the Lions are favored by 7.
Yeah, I think Detroit's going to win it. By maybe a couple scores.
I think 10.
Yeah, 10, even maybe 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I don't see Buffalo really being able to stop Detroit's offense. And Detroit's run defense has been so good this year. Buffalo's going to have a hard time running the ball. It's going to put extra pressure on the quarterback. Who actually is going to be
Kyle
Orton.
Wow.
So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe if he can hook up with Watkins, that might be a good combo. But I don't see it. Kyle Orton's just too far removed from having to be in that starting role.
But he is an upgrade from E.J. Manuel, and that's interesting because Buffalo has an okay record, and especially if they can win this game somehow, get the upset, that puts them in decent position in a not so good division here, the AFC East. But Detroit is way too fearsome at this point.
Yeah, you gotta go with Detroit in this one.
Stafford's on his game. The one thing that is kind of a code blue in Detroit that really makes me question them in the long run is their running game. Reggie Bush and Joique Bell haven't really jumped out at you as a premier back. Reggie Bush has had a couple fantastic runs, highlight reel runs, so I think that looks good. But one of those guys is going to have to step up. A lot of people expected it to be Joique Bell, and that hasn't been the case so far.
No, I'd like to see him keep Bush in there a little more, use him a little more. He's your explosive guy, and then use Joique Bell when you have close, you need a yard or two, goal line situations, throwing the bigger back.
Yeah, I think we here at Trippy Commentaries have been an advocate of more Reggie Bush play. He's a little bit injury prone. He seems to be coming up with these weird tiny injuries, so maybe that has a lot to do with them wanting to play Joique Bell a little bit more. But perhaps this year, if they can get into the playoffs, all of a sudden Reggie Bush is healthy, that's the time you do it, because it looks like they're a playoff team all the way so far. Yep. Thank you guys for joining us for part 1 of our Week 5 preview. Make sure to stay tuned because part 2 has some really key matchups, including Arizona traveling to Denver. We know Arizona's D is legit.
It's going to be a good game.
But Peyton Manning has all of his tools ready to go, including Wes Welker. Haven't heard much from Demaryius Thomas this year. I think this could be the game. Going against Patrick Peterson, I think they're going to want to prove a point. Another matchup I'm really wanting to ask you about here, Kyle, is Cincinnati at New England. I know who I'm going to pick. Something tells me you're going to pick the same team. We'll find out in part 2. See you guys there.